James Comey, the exclusive interview everyone will be talking about.
Fired FBI Director Jim Comey gave his coveted first interview to ABC News and George Stephanopoulos earlier this week.
People will read that story and try to put themselves in my shoes.
Predictably, it dominated news coverage, even on the competition.
All Jim Comey had to do was keep his mouth shut. He's incapable of it, as we see.
The other thing that surprises me, frankly, is how bitchy the book is.
The White House has attacked Comey, calling him a liar, but a new ABC News poll out this morning suggests Americans 48 to 32% find James Comey more believable than the president.
But just before the interview aired, ABC News made an unusual decision. It released the transcript of the entire interview and posted it online. Not just the portion that aired on TV, but the entire 5-hour sit-down with Comey. ABC News President James Goldston called it an important example of transparency and part of modern journalism.
Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Since you are attacking our news organization,
not you.
Can you give us a chance?
Your organization.
You are attacking our news.
In a hyper-polarized political climate, he says it shows that journalists have nothing to hide. But does that necessarily mean it comes without risks? Al Tompkins is a broadcast news specialist at the Poynter Institute. So, Al, you were quoted in an Associated Press story this week as saying that you don't see any downside to posting the whole thing. Why not?
Well, if anybody cares to go through hours of transcription to figure out whether or not ABC cut the story, edited the story in a way that's authentic to the conversation, then they would have the ability to do that. Now, look, I don't much think anybody's going to do that any more than they would sit down and look at a transcript of this conversation. One reason we watch television is so you can do the work of cutting it down and making sense of it. But when it's as contentious as the first big interview with Comey would be, then context does matter. I also believe, and I don't have proof of this, I just want to throw this on the table, but I also believe that one reason that ABC might have done that is because lots of Sunday newspaper writers needed a word-for-word transcription of the conversation so that they could write their pieces for Monday morning without staying up and waiting for the very last breath to come out of the ABC program. So I suspect some of this was accommodation for the press, but it's an interesting practice, and I don't see anything wrong with letting the public in on it. I would say, though, that it can get messy, right? Sometimes you and I know that we do interviews for television, and sometimes we back up and maybe we say, well, let me just restate that again, or let me take another crack at that. It's not that I'm being inauthentic. I'm not trying to even walk back what I had said before, but I might want to clarify it because I know that in television, time is precious, and you want a short soundbite.
Well, and that's one of my points. I mean, isn't one of the risks that trolls or people who seem to live to discredit the media would not go line by line through this interview looking for even a poorly worded question to discredit the whole thing?
Well, I think, look, anybody that's going to take in a story and try to figure out whether or not it's authentic might be more discerning than just to take a troll. But it might also force us as journalists, as people who make our living talking and asking questions, might force us to more carefully craft our questions and to think about what we're asking and how we ask it. That's fair. I think that if we're going to hold people up for scrutiny for the way they answer questions, maybe we ought to be held up to more scrutiny for the way we ask them.
Fair enough. But is there also an issue here of posting it as if to say, we used the best parts, we didn't take it out of context, here it is, here's proof for you to see, which makes me ask the question, are we at the place now as journalists where we're actually begging people to trust us? We're showing so much of our work, trying to be so transparent because we're concerned that people just don't believe us.
Well, I'm not begging people to trust me. I'm saying, look, I think that I've earned it. I think that you can trust what I'm saying to be true, and here's why I think that. Now, based on that, you can or you can't. And I will say this, that if you don't want to trust me, there's no amount of disclosure that's going to help you to do that. If you're not open to some truth, I really can't help you with that. So transparency isn't going to solve the problem of people who absolutely don't want it. They're only looking for what they agree with. But for people who actually want to know, it could be a tool.
Interesting. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.